It's blessed for him to be in the room. Y'all make some noise for that.
Appreciate you. Thanks. I'm gonna sit down for a second. I got a question for everybody in here. How many of you all are geniuses? What makes you a genius?
It's not
No, what makes you? Not the definition. What makes you a genius?
smarts, academics.
What makes you a genius? Who raised their hand? You raise your hand. What makes you a genius?
Man, that a lot of stuff.
What makes you a genius? Ain't nothing funny. What makes you a genius? Anybody? For me, I don't look at the word genius the same as everybody else. I like to construct my own definition for words. So when I speak them, I give them my own meaning. So for me, I believe your genius is your genuineness. Your genuineness is the things that you were born to do, the things that only you can do, the things that make you original, right? So everybody take a look at your hand one time, right? Everybody got a fingerprint, right? It's a little spiral. Everybody's fingerprint in here is completely different than every other person that's been born on the planet Earth. The space that you take up, the words you use, the shit that you see, excuse my language, those are the things that only you experience. The way that you think when you hear certain things, those are things that only you experience. If a billionaire came in this room right now and they asked your perspective on a product that they were making, only you can give them your perspective. So that means that would be your value, that would be your genuineness. But not everybody is tapped into what makes them genuine, because not everybody actually controls themselves. Some people are slaves to things already. It could be your environment, it can be your insecurities, it can be your home situations. Certain things just don't allow you to control yourself. So you don't even get to grow and naturally function in what makes you genius. So if a person asks you your perspective, you might be looking at somebody else like, damn, what do I think about this? You can't even tap into your original thought process. Because everybody's a slave to something. It might be drugs, it might be entertainment. Something makes you a slave, meaning that you don't have control over yourself. Even if a person wanted to sit in this chair for a long period of time like this, by themselves, they couldn't. They got to move, they got to talk, they got to do something because they don't control themselves. That's supposed to be a natural human function, just to be able to control yourself. Now, my brother gave such an eloquent speech and introduction to everything. And one thing I like is the quote from Frederick Douglass. And he say, knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Now, it's a difference between knowledge and information. Because a lot of people got information. Today, y'all got information. If y'all want to learn some of the stuff I'm talking about right now, you can just go on your phone, Google it, and look it up. That's what make you informed. That's going to give you some information, right? But I can teach you something all day. But if you don't apply it at all, you get no experience, and it never becomes what you know. So it never becomes knowledge. And a lot of people think they got knowledge, but they only got information, right? So if I teach you how to run my business on how I do it, I just gave you all the information. Now, if you take that information and you start to apply it, then you start to get some knowledge because you got experience. Now you get to think back on how that process was. Now you can take that knowledge, it becomes your value, then you can teach it to somebody else. See, I didn't know knowledge was even that powerful. I thought that people just said knowledge was power just because, you know, it was something cool to say. I didn't really understand what the hell people was talking about when they say knowledge is power. It wasn't until I had my last case when I was 19 years old. And I was fighting this case from an assault charge. Somebody snitched on me. And they brought my name up. They pointed me out and said that so-and-so did so-and-so. And at the time, I was in like Iowa working for like a magazine company, and it was on a break from college, and I got a call on by some white person, see me in the neighborhood selling whatever I was selling, and they called the police. The police pulled up. They was like, yo, we got a call for disturbance that you in the area doing whatever. But they like, I understand it's a racist neighborhood, you black, they probably was no issue. So they ran my name and my partners, and then they left. The cops was kind of friendly actually. But then they came back like 5 minutes later, sirens blasting, pulled up on me, guns out like, yo, I don't know who you are, but it's a lot of shit on your name. And they saying, you got assault charges, you got kidnapping charges, you got hella stuff, robbery. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So they put the cuffs on me, they threw me in the jail, right? So I'm sitting there for about a month. And then they was waiting to be extradited, meaning they take you from one state to another. So they was taking me from Iowa to California. And I remember being in the Chicago airport. And in the Chicago airport, when they extraditing you and they flying you, they put chains on your feet, chains on your arm, and then they wheel you through a wheelchair through the airport. And Chicago, one of the biggest airports. So it was probably one of the most embarrassing things of my life, being wheeled through the airport. And I remember having to sit on the back of the plane and everybody staring and everybody watching. And I think at that moment was the time I really, really felt like a slave. Like, because I had no power over myself. And so I definitely didn't have the knowledge to get out that situation at all. So I remember getting back to California finally. I stayed there for about a couple weeks till I was finally bailed out. And when I was bailed out, that's when they started the trial. The trial was crazy because we had to go through every process of it. We had to pick the jury. I didn't realize how hard the task of picking the jury is. Like, you got to make sure you pick the right people, because those people go be picking your freedom. But you can't pick it off based on what you know. You know what I mean? Because you might pick somebody black, but they might look at young black children and be like, man, he's going to come and do the same thing. Maybe he need to learn this lesson by sitting in jail. So you got to be careful. You got to look at their job. You got to look at their politics, their psychology, everything. You got to really do your homework on these people. So we sitting in there, and we had a team, because I wasn't just the only one in trial. I had other co-defendants. It was a bunch of us. So we sitting in there, we going through the paperwork of all of the different jurors, trying to figure out who we go pick so we can get the best people that will judge us fairly, basically. Based on that, they don't have no biases towards. They don't look at you and be like, you know what? You know, he always moving, he always talking. You know what I mean? He need that lesson. He need to sit down for another 7 years. And maybe when he come out, the system will do him better. There's a lot of people that don't really care if y'all be slaves, whether you make it or not. They don't really just give a damn about your future. So as we sitting and we going through trial, that's when my older brother, he gave me some books. He was like, I want you to read these. And the books started opening my mind up to different information that I knew nothing about at first. At first I was reading like, what's the point of this? But then he was telling me like, oh, this is tactical, bro. It's like you going to trial and you might end up losing your freedom. So he said, for one, make sure you always have a book with you when you go to trial, so that the jurors see somebody who has a possible future. So they see somebody with potential. So they want me free. So I'm going to court every day with a book in my hand or a backpack so they can see me as a student. I'm painting the picture for them. I'm impressioning them, creating an image for myself. So I'm creating these tactics. Then I actually started to read the books. And the books was about how the law system was started. The books was about, you know, how they use certain language in the courtroom and about the laws and everything. So I'm learning the information now, how to create a strategy inside this trial, inside this courtroom. So I'm telling things for my lawyer to do. I'm like, look, I'm looking up stuff on the internet. I'm like, look, there's a certain motion you can file to do this. Can we do that? Now, he was lazy. He didn't want to do all that. The more motions, meaning the more paperwork he got to do on my behalf. I'm like, can we get this dropped down? Can you get this taken out the transcript? I'm really like doing the work that he's supposed to be doing. Now, when I made him, because also he didn't win many cases. He was a fat, flubbering white guy that didn't really win that many cases. And so I didn't want to put my freedom in his hands. I knew it was going to be all dependent upon my information and my knowledge and how I was tactical in getting out of this. I didn't want to just sit in a chair and then let this guy be the one who decides my future. So we go through the trial. We go through all of the different tactics. It was one point in the trial to where I knew I was going to be free, at least in my mind. I was leaving out the courtroom and the jurors was going downstairs to go grab snacks and coffee and stuff. So I decided to go down and go grab me some coffee as well. And I remember I went to go grab some coffee and they were grabbing coffee too, and I dropped the receipt after I bought something, and one of the jurors picked it up. It was a white lady. She picked it up and she put it in my hand and she smiled. She said, it's all right. And I was like, oh, I think we got one. I was being tactical the whole time. I made sure they never seen me angry. I made sure that every time that they said something, I made sure I controlled every response in there. Because I knew that every single thing I did was going to depend on my future. So I had to become a genius in this courtroom. You know what I mean? So the day that they decided to read the court verdict, they say, Jibril Muhammad, man, my heart was beating. It said, not guilty. Whew. I was happy as hell. So that's when I learned that knowledge was power. Because the information wasn't nothing until I started applying it. When I started applying it, then it became experience. And when it became experience, I was able to use that, meaning that I can take it and then I can change my situation, I can change my reality. So ever since that day, I became obsessed with applicable knowledge, meaning knowledge that I can use and knowledge that I can apply. When I was locked up, I read this book, and it was a story book, and it was a dope book. It had me like really feeling like I was watching a movie just by reading the book. But it didn't teach me nothing at all on how to gain my freedom. And it wasn't until I started in that courtroom and I started reading books that can actually teach me about gaining my freedom, I became obsessed with that type of information. So now, every time I want to do something new, I get me a new power. I mean, I'm getting me a new book. I'm getting me some new knowledge. I'm applying new things. So when I make things like this crowns, it ain't just because I woke up one day and decided to do it. I said, no, let me learn a new power. Let me learn the luxury world, right? Let me learn branding. Let me learn sales. Let me learn all of these different things. Let me learn how to create a value. When I started to create 19 keys, which is the name that I go by, which is representing keys is knowledge, because knowledge unlocks things, or key meaning energy in the mind, which is knowledge. So once I started learning that, I decided that everything that I do, I can build my future self. And I want you all to get this concept really quick. Is that today is what? What's today's date? Anybody? The 12th, right? It's June 12th, 2018. Now, I deem next year, I call it the year of the keys, because it's 2019. It's the year of the keys. It's the year that you can unlock everything that you want to. That's just where we at in society. We got tools that allow you to do whatever you want to. You really don't have no excuses. Circumstance, situation, you can figure out the information, turn it into knowledge, apply it, and unlock whatever you want to. So, if you do, so let's say by the end of the year, I want $1 million. And let's say I want to be married or something, whatever it may be. That means that everything that I do right now, leading up until next year, next year, December 12th, 2019, I'm going to have to become that person, that future self. Like, I'm going to have to live his life. Whoever he is, based on all my decisions that I make every single day, I'm going to have to live his life. Now, if I got a goal that's saying by December 12th, 2019, I want to be rich, I want to have a wife and things of that nature, that means that I have to make sure that every single thing that I do is adding to the eventuality of me becoming that type of person, or me becoming that person that has everything that I want. So if I want to have $1 million, then I have to take a look at how I spend money. I have to take a look at how I save money. I have to take a look at how I invest money. I have to take a look at how I get money. So every single day, I could break it down mathematically. I can say that maybe it take me $1,000 a day or $3,000 a day. That means I have to do something every single day to get that. And every single decision that I make is either going to lead me up to that person that has the money, or has the wife, or has the thing that I want to, or I'm going to have to suffer the consequences of the person that was irresponsible. And then when I become that person, the same way everybody is today, December 12th, every decision you made in your entire life led you to be this person that you are. Nobody else. You can blame who you want to. It don't matter. I grew up in a crib where I had to sell drugs because we didn't have no money. So I had to figure it out. And then that wasn't my first case. First case, I got locked up for selling drugs. I beat that case too, because I believed that, you know, I don't know about y'all, and I'm only going to speak for myself, but my parents, when I was younger, they told me I was a god. And when they told me that, I didn't know what they was talking about. You know, I was like, I mean, it sounded good. You know what I mean? I thought they was telling me like I'm bulletproof, I can not get hit, you know what I mean, by bullets and walk through cars and all kind of crazy stuff. But when I got older, I understood that they were saying that I needed to tap into that God within. And what that means is that I always ask myself, what would God do? Or what would a genius do in this situation? What would somebody who's more intelligent than me do in this situation in order to get out of it? And one thing I hate not having is self-control. One thing I hate not having is control over the situation, control over the environment. Because that means that I'm a slave to something else. If you want to stop smoking weed or stop drinking or stop hanging with certain people and you can't do it, and you got to ask yourself, damn, if I can't stop doing it, then what is that that's controlling me? It's the environment, it's the drugs, it's my influences, my peers. You know what I mean? It might be people you want to cut off in your life, friends you don't like no more. You can't even do it. What is that influencing me? I can't even control myself. So instead, I just always give myself the power to do so. If I ain't got the knowledge, I might go look it up on YouTube, see somebody else who's done it before so I can take that information and free myself from that which has control over me until I have control over me, till I become that God within my life. Now, December 12, 2019, y'all gonna have to live y'all life. Whoever y'all become. You know what I mean? Your health, your money, your decisions, your influences, whether you locked up in jail, whether you get good grades, things of that nature, that's going to be up to you. Now for me, I don't take nothing for granted. I don't wait for nobody to book me. I don't wait for nobody to give me a job. I don't wait for somebody to give me a good grade to tell me I'm a genius. I don't wait for nobody validation but myself. We live in a society that now they say that 70 to 80% of the jobs that's going to happen in the future haven't even been created yet. And it's proof because individuals like my brother David Shands and myself, we creating jobs for ourselves. There wasn't jobs like this at first. I just wake up, roll out the bed, go talk and make me some money. I created this job. I said I want to become 19 Keys. At the top of the year, I said I want to make this a brand that's internationally known. Everything I do is intentional. I said I want to have a mastermind group, now travel the world with other influencers as masterminds. You know what I mean? But I knew that every decision that I make, either I was going to become that person that I wanted to be, or I was to regret not having the power to give myself that ability to be who I want to be. So when you ask yourself, are you a genius? It's fully dependent upon the knowledge that you have. It's fully dependent upon your ability to control yourself. It's fully dependent upon the type of questions you ask and the type of answers you're able to get. You said that you wouldn't ask Jay-Z a question. That's not intelligent. Because an intelligent person seeks information and knowledge regardless of source. I would ask anybody that has the knowledge that I need to free myself the question, because the right question comes with the polarity of the right answer. The polarity meaning it has the same exact energy. So if you ask the right question, then you get the right answer. Now, that don't mean that you're not intelligent. It just means that you need to change your information and change the way you interact with things. You consider yourself intelligent, correct? Intelligence is the ability to solve problems in the future, right? So if you're intelligent and you think about some of your problems that you may have right now, you got to ask yourself, before they come up, can I solve this in the future? Maybe you might be talking in class. Just having self-control is solving the problem in the future. So as, like, you know, back in the day, maybe being a class clown and being funny wasn't a job. Today it can actually become a job. So the thing is, you just have to learn how to monetize who you are at the same time, but you have to control it for a specific intent. You got to do it for a reason. If you do it for no reason, then that means you don't have no control. I want to leave y'all with that, and then I just want y'all to always remember that you have value because of who you are. And a lot of people know their names, but not everybody know who they are. A lot of people know what they do, but you ask person, people always ask how you doing, you know what I mean? People always ask what you do, but not many people can answer the question, who are you? And the better you can ask that question, the more power you have over yourself. Tap in.
Anybody have any questions? That was good? Yes, Ken. You said it was inspiring? Go.
All like to teach us about like top like a profitable like life in the future.
To have a profitable life in the future.
And like if you like don't succeed in life as like far as academics and success goes, if you don't do well in school, how are we going to be able to do well in the streets? How are we going to be able to do well with all these people that are going to be hating on me?
You did. So what was the biggest takeaway? Can somebody give me one of the biggest takeaways you took from it? What is it, Ken?
I think the trial situation.
The trial situation? The fact that he got his own knowledge, freed himself, definitely dope. So now we see putting that knowledge into action makes you powerful, right?
Yeah.
Another person who put their knowledge into action and made it possible for all of us to be here because he had a vision and he wanted to bring some people in that would be able to benefit you, to be an asset to you and not a liability. The owner, founder, the Keffer Foundation, we're going to bring the person that brought this motley crew together and allowed us to come pour back into you. So the next brother I'm going to bring to the stage is nobody that y'all don't know, but I want you to treat him as if it's the first time he's coming up to the stage. Is that fair enough?
Yes, sir.
All right, so fellas.
I think it comes a point in time where you start to do things that make sense and it makes you feel good, and then that's when people say, oh, I found myself. But I don't think self is outside you. So first you have to do to be your best you is you have to have self-knowledge. If I'm having a bad day, or if I have a bad habit, then I'm going to figure out a way to where I can change that, right? And then if it works for me, then that's what I call becoming a key. Then I can give it to somebody else because it unlocks something. So when it comes to being your best self, for one, you have to ask yourself, what do you think that look like? Because you can be your best self with nothing at all. It's not a material possession you have, oh, I got a car, I'm my best self. Oh, I make this money, I'm my best self. Your best self looking like having your best mind, right? The more intelligent you are, the more information and knowledge that you have and you grasp, that's when you become your best self. Einstein, I think his story is interesting, right? Because he was publishing papers about things that he was thinking, just thoughts that he did thought experiments. He didn't even perform experiments inside a lab to where, you can just see all of the work. He did thought experiments, meaning he literally was thinking out everything, in his head. And then he'd take his thoughts and he'd write it down. Now, I like the story because if Einstein never wrote his thoughts down, the world would have never known he was a genius. Now, when he was writing them down, the way that he became a celebrity genius is because the scientific community tried to prove him wrong. So he didn't even prove himself right. He just showed the world his thoughts. And then they tried to prove him wrong, which only validated his genius. There's a lot of you all already very great. But you're waiting on the world to validate you. You're waiting on the world to tell you that you're a genius. You're waiting on the world to tell you you're a good person, you got a good heart, you all of these different things. It starts with realizing who you are. And then the more you realize about yourself, damn, I'm doing this good, I'm this type of person, I'm being an actual good person makes you a good person. But it's every single day you get to define the type of person that you want to be based on every decision that you make. So if a person is speaking and giving you keys, and you on your phone, you might be texting a chick, you might be on Instagram, you're not doing yourself your best service. It means you have a lack of self-love. Because if you love yourself for real, you're going to sit there and listen. You're going to take this time to cut out whatever you're doing, and then you're going to take the information because you be like, I love myself so much that I want to add to my mind. I want to add to things that's going to make me better at life. So I'm going to sit here and sacrifice. Sacrifice is the currency. It's the money you use to buy the life you want. It's the money you use to buy the self you want. So if I'm sitting and I'm listening to 10 hours of videos and reading books, I don't really feel like doing that. But I know that if I sacrifice this time, it's going to make me better. So you got to ask yourself, what would you sacrifice in order to make you better? There's a lot of you might go listen to watch Netflix for 10 hours. You might have to sacrifice that Netflix. Turn that on to a podcast in order to make yourself better. Now, I'm going to give you a key, right? Because right now you have the ability to go on YouTube, right? You can go on YouTube, and everybody in here can do this. You can go on YouTube right now, and you can look up a field that you've never known nothing about. It can be physics, quantum physics or something. And you can sit down and listen to hours of those videos, right? You don't have to understand it or even know it, right? How old are you?
14.
14 years old. So if you take those videos, you take those hours of videos, and then you go on Instagram or you create a YouTube channel where you talking about quantum physics, people will think you're a genius. They're going to be like, this is a 14-year-old telling us about quantum physics. You probably blow up. And you from the hood? You from the hood. I don't want to assume you from the hood. You from the hood. All right. So when you think about reality in different ways, you just finding ways to add value to yourself. I believe that what you put out to the world is the illusion so that they can see who you are, right? But you can't believe your own illusions, though. A lot of people get caught up in their Instagram following or their Facebook or whatever they have. But guess what? If you had 1 million followers tomorrow, people would listen to what you say more than what they do right now today. But the only difference is the illusion of those followers. But you still the exact same person. But it validates what you say because of these illusion of numbers. That's the society we live in. So sometimes, but before society ever gets to deem your value, you have to first realize it. But you can spend your life showing the world your value. And then they realize it as well, and they be like, he is a genius. But first you have to prove it. It's not enough to just know. That's enough for yourself, but it's not enough for the world to know. So when it comes to being a greater version of yourself, you got to realize who you are and then show the world.
Don't get no cleaner than that. Anybody else? Who got the next question? I'm gonna start calling you out. I know people waiting down. I ain't gonna ask. I'm gonna just start calling you out. So I already had your question in mind. Fair enough? Is that fair? All right, Ken. Need a second? Come on, you know I was coming to you. You my guy. No, we can't wait for everybody else. Here's the thing. Everybody not going to be able to go to greatness with you. Some people going to wait till you get to greatness, and then they're going to be like, oh, life, you... Yeah, I couldn't wait on everybody. This road is a road less traveled. That means everybody not going to go. So you just got to stand on your own, okay?
Did I just ask me anything?
You can just ask anything. I'm going to direct the question. I want to make sure we get a full spill of the crib.
How did you start, where did the idea come up with making the headbands?
I started making these for myself first. Everything I started to do for myself. Because I believe I got good taste, and if I like it, other people gonna like it. But the clothing brand started when I was in St. Louis. And me and my brother was making shirts for ourselves. And as we started making them for ourselves, some of the local guys in the neighborhood, some of the gangsters and hood members or whatever, they be like, make me one for my hood, make me one with this thing on it, this thing on it. So I recognized that we had a skill and we had a value. When you recognize you had a value, then that means that you can sell it. You know what I mean? Because business is all about creating a value. So after that, that's when it went from understanding that I can do business just based off my talents. And then I was in business with my brother, but they stopped being in business. So at first, I wasn't even in the designer field. I was more so just doing the marketing for them. Like I wanted to just help them get their sales up. But when they stopped doing business with me, it forced me to get in the designer chair. And then I started to think, well, what do I want to make for myself? And I had this, I drew it up. And I had it in my notebook before about a year before I actually printed it up. Because the people that I wanted to have make, they didn't want to do a full embroidery all the way around and things of that nature. Because it was just too much work for them. So I decided to make a product that I first valued. And I know that if I value something, then somebody else will. And if somebody else does, then at least another 10 people will. And if 10 people value it, then 100 people will. But the point of these crowns is for this reason. Because I never do anything that don't have a meaning. Everything that I do has to have a meaning, so when I explain it, you understand it. You ever seen a billboard for liquor? You ever seen a billboard for like cigarettes or just something that ain't got nothing to do? Right. All of it is towards what I like to call your lower self. Right? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create something that was becoming like a billboard for your higher self. So these represent freedom, justice, and equality and enlightenment. It represents your higher mind. Every time I look in the mirror and I see this, I want to remind myself of my higher mind. So I wear these symbols on my head because it's also a representation of the universe. So when I think about my problems, they become very small and minuscule to how big the universe is. You know what I mean? And the universe has a balance. The universe has a formula that it goes and a code that it works off of. So I said, if I can create a shift in the world where, you know how, y'all seen the movie Colors? So the movie Colors taught the world how to gangbang. It flooded gang banging across the world, where cats in Indianapolis and Ohio and Iowa knew nothing about Bloods and Crips. But what the movie did is it created a propaganda, a marketing, and taught people the ritual of how to bang, taught them how to say certain words, taught them how to throw up certain things, wear certain colors. And what that did is it flooded the hood with gang consciousness, meaning that it taught them how to be aware of how to be a gang member. So I said, instead of the bandanas, I need to create me something of the opposite energy, the opposite polarity, because I want to bang intelligence on people. I want to bang righteousness on people. I want to bang the type of world that I want to live in on people. So instead of the bandanas, I created the crowns. And now I go around the world and I crown people and I represent their higher mind. And anytime somebody else seen that crown, they know the meaning, then they get to see a billboard that's tapping into their higher consciousness.
What is the billboard of you? When people see you, think about what he's saying. When he walks in, that crown gives everybody a billboard to tell them what he represents. If they look at you, what is the billboard that you put up every day? So we know we're on your lunchtime right now. So this is the part we got to break.
One quick question.
You got a quick one?
It's a long.
It's a long one.
I got a question.
It takes too long.
This how it goes right here, right? They're holding all day. Oh, time about to pass.
And we're here.
But we're here.
Yeah, I want to say this too. It's not, the question isn't to ask a question in question time. If you have a question, when the bell rings, you ask it. You can get it answered by any one of us. We're not in no hurry. Our goal is to help you. This ain't entertainment. Make sense? So we got a question, we got you.
Fair enough? All right, we just want to make sure that we do it in decency and good order because we know you have a slotted time to go get something to eat. But y'all know us long enough to know we're going to answer the questions, right?
Yeah, we back tomorrow.
If we got to go eat with you. Go ahead, King. I talked too long? All right, so I'm going to give him the question time, right? And then you remember your question and then later on we'll answer it. Is that fair? All right, go ahead.
Alright, so I'm applying for college to go to school for business, and I don't really want to say like what I'm gonna do because I feel like it's blocking business. But is this something I can do now before like I even get into college, like to start on it or not?
So here's the thing. You got a college degree? No. I'm not shunning college at all. I just want to show you something. You got a college degree?
Proud dropout.
I have a college degree?
Randy got a degree though.
Brandon.
Twice. Brandon just came back. So college, go. You need to go, right? But entrepreneurship, you start right now. Business, you can create right now. You don't have to wait to go to college. Now, you can create the business now, and then go get the knowledge from college if that's what you need to do. But I don't want you to hold up on creating the business. So right now, you need to figure out what exactly is the business you want to do. The reason I say that is I know a slew of people who go to college in business, right, and end up working in Walmart because they never had an idea of what business they wanted to create. So before you walk into the institution of college, you need to go in with the knowledge of saying, this is exactly what I need to get out of this college. And that needs to be in the forefront of your mind before you throw a whole bunch of money into something, and then you say, oh man, I could have just did this off a master's class. So what I need you to do is find exactly what it is the business you want to create. I'm not shunning college, so let me be clear. What I'm saying is when you go in, the college has an agenda, you go in there and get everything you need out of the college for the thing that you want to do in life. Does that make sense? So right now, what I want you to do is between today and tomorrow, so we're going to be back tomorrow, write down not the occupation you want, the things that you love to do first, okay? After you write down the things you love to do, from that we'll pick occupation. Because if you're doing what you love to do as an occupation, you'll never feel like you're going to work. So I don't want you to write down, I want to do this job or create this. I want to say, what do I love to do? And then let's figure the business out after that, and then that'll tell you what college you need to go to, so you go to the right place for the right reason. Does that make sense? All right, cool.
So can we have a round of applause?